I discovered some things that have made me go from uploading once a year to creating multiple pieces of content every single week. Let's first talk about the most common reasons that 99.99% of creators say is the reason for their inconsistency. You guessed it, the first one is, of course, time, and the second is energy or lack of motivation. Now, yes, some of us have full-time jobs, some of us have families and other commitments, but barring those parts of life, which we can't really change, it really all boils down to these three areas: environment, expectation, and process. Now let's go through them one at a time with examples of changes I've personally made to boost the rate of productivity on my content creation. So let's take the first area, which is environment. So the way I look at environment is who's in your environment and what's in your environment. Okay, so who's around you and what's around you. At a certain point in my life, I just found that I was giving too much time and energy to certain people who didn't really appreciate any of what I was doing for them. And these definitely had a negative effect on my time, energy, and mood. So much so that I've ended up not really having enough time for myself. So that answers who's in my environment. And then what's around me part. I found that I was really struggling with keeping a tidy house, and that really contributed to the way I was feeling. So when I eventually allowed myself to be free of these people that were holding me down, and also I figured out a system to manage my home so it didn't get to the point where it was too overwhelming for me to keep up with, that immediately gave me more time and lifted my spirits. Now, the next area I looked at was around expectations. So you see, sometimes it's unrealistic expectations that you are placing on yourself, which makes you think that you don't have enough time. So if I said I plan to upload one video per week and I missed a week, what's that going to do to my psyche? Of course, every time I miss an upload deadline, I'll think, man, I don't have enough time to meet my targets. And also it's going to make me feel like shit, to be honest, which is going to lower my mood and motivation to keep going, right? So my expectations for myself these days is not around consistent upload. My expectations are to be working on content every single day. That's the type of consistency I'm after. Because I know that if I'm working on something every day, whether or not I upload, then I must be working on something or multiple things that I'm going to eventually upload at some point, right? Because I'm not putting that amount of pressure on myself to upload, I find that my output is actually increased in terms of quality and quantity. But let's imagine that for you, your unrealistic expectation is around the fact that maybe you always want your content to be perfect. I used to be like that. I want to think that I've gotten rid of that problem. But if I see it kind of starting to creep in, what I do is I give myself a cap on the time limit to work on a specific project. So if I don't think it's perfect by that deadline date, then I will still force myself to upload that piece of content. And you'll find that once you start adopting that kind of mind frame, you will start to let go of this need to make everything perfect. Now, the last area that I looked at was the process part of it. And this area is where I made a lot of little tweaks, but I'll go through 3 of them now. Let's talk about the first of these process changes. When I created videos in the past, I used to put most of the load at the end of the process. What I mean by this is that I did the tiniest bit of research and planning in the beginning. I had no script. I just made some bullet points and then started filming. But it took me a long time to realize that getting off to a quick start actually does more harm than good in the long run. Because when I was editing, I could see so many things that I forgot to mention, or I realized the information doesn't flow properly because I would randomly go off on a tangent. And the edit looked so bad because there were so many cuts. So now what I do is I front load my process. I do a lot of preparation up front and put in a huge amount of time on scripting for every single video. Typically takes me anywhere between, I'd say 6 to 30 hours of research and scripting for a single video. But when I'm done, the filming part is so quick. And to make it even quicker, I use another cheat code, which is my teleprompter. And I know I've put all the information across the best way I knew how, and that makes the videos look so much more professional. Now, there's 2 more changes that I want to share with you, and these 2 changes are so simple, they're literally effortless. For those of you who often like to use clips from your favorite YouTubers or influencers from a time you remember them saying something profound, I don't know about you, but I used to have a lot of trouble looking for specific clips for my B-roll because I couldn't remember the channel it was on or the video it was in, right? So what I did is I created a tool that's basically a library of all my favorite YouTubers' videos. And when I want to add a particular clip, all I do is search up the words that I remember them saying, and then it gives me the link to the exact clip where he said this.
I mentioned it before. Component labor is the name of the game in the schooling system.
And so that saves me a huge amount of time when it comes to B-roll. So this tool is currently something that I've made for my own personal use. But if enough of you want access to it, then I'm happy to make it available to you guys. So if you want to get your hands on it, just comment the word B-roll below. And also I've got an email address in the description. If you want to send me an email listing your favorite YouTubers that you normally like to reference in your B-roll, if I get enough emails, I will do my best to make the tool available to anyone that wants it. The last process improvement that I'm going to talk about here is all to do with my setup. So I have this big C stand and light that I used to take out every time I had to film, because I always used to film at night when my kids were in bed. And having to set this up each and every single time and put it away at like 2 or 3 a.m. was such a task. And of course, filming at night wasn't the best thing for me to do because I wouldn't get enough sleep, and then the next day I'd be super tired. So these days, I only film during the day in front of my living room window, which is right there, which lets a lot of light in. And then I also only film when the kids aren't around. And another thing I do is I only film in a spot that I've filmed in before, so I know exactly how to position myself and the camera. I could go on forever about how I refined my content making process, but if you want more amazing tips like this, you definitely want to head over to this video right here.